The topic is really very broad, being Indian in ASEAN and being an overseas Indian in India. So I think the sky is the limit. So in interest of time, I think the introduction has already been done of the speakers. So when they speak, they will be telling more about themselves. So just to lay the foundation and to narrow down the topic, and maybe during the question and answer, we can take up more about this topic. Well, when you talk about ASEAN, now I'm trying to restrict myself to ASEAN, though of course in the Ministry of External Affairs, we deal with the topic on the global scale. But in the morning session also, our secretary had mentioned about the Look East policy, which the government of India started in the 90s, because before that, most of the Indian connection was geared towards the West and to the neighborhood. But they said that, as have been mentioned in the earlier talks and by the earlier speakers in the different sessions, that East, Southeast, which includes this region of ASEAN, has had much more deeper and historical connections to India. So why not revive that route? And especially also the era of globalization, easy communication helped in this regard. As we see in the last 25 years, especially after the liberalization policy of the government of India, more and more people from India have traveled abroad, not necessarily out of distress, as some had happened in the past in some cases, but more to tap people and business opportunities and to develop linkages, linkages with new opportunities coming up in a fast globalizing world. The technological change that have happened, especially after the internet and communication technology revolutions, have allowed one to develop linkages much easier than it used to be in the past, and I don't need to elaborate on that. The ease with more affordability in the case of travel has been another positive contributing factor in developing these linkages. Then, as per our cultural ethos, though we may be residing abroad, which is typical of an Indian community, we like to maintain relations with our relatives and friends back home, which is India. Of course, we do recognize that as people move to third and fourth generations, the linkages tends to get diluted. How to engage these upcoming generations, new generations whose links have become quite diluted, and to keep their interest and contacts with India is a challenge. And I think some of the points which I think panelists will bring out will address these. Some of the panelists present here are addressing these issues, as I mentioned. The government of India first started in an institutional manner to recognize the diaspora by launching the Person of India, or PIO card, as many of you may be familiar with. This was strengthened when the Overseas Citizenship in India, or OCI card, scheme, which was introduced by amending the Citizenship Act 1955 in August 2005. The scheme was launched during Pravasi Bharatiya Convention, which was held at Hyderabad in the year 2006. On 9th January 2015, by a notification of Government of India, all existing PIOs and card holders have been deemed to be OCI card holders. Of course, the PIO card holders are supposed to surrender the PIO card in order to get the OCI card. Till 30th November, just to way of information, 2017, the total number of OCI cards issued stands at 27,42,460. And a total of 3,11,987 OCI cards have been issued in lieu of POI cards in the same period since the merger of PIO card scheme with the OCI card scheme. So these, of course, are some of the schemes which the government has launched. We can go into, if I start giving more details, I think the whole session will go into that. But the idea which we are discussing or trying to flesh out today, I think in the topic which I mentioned in the beginning is vast, is that how once you are abroad, most of the people here, and some of you may be in the third and fourth generation, how do you reconnect back to India, what you can contribute? For example, in the morning session which we had in the main hall, the State Minister of Investment from Malaysia was mentioning that, though he's an Indian origin person and he takes a lot of interest in India, he sees more Chinese approaching him for business opportunities rather than India. He says he sees them, if I am not mistaken, just to quote him, every day 15 or 16 of them, whereas from the Indian community, he will come across hardly anybody once in 3 months. So it's a very dismal statistics from his point of view, though he is in the chair. So I mean, these are some of the questions which I think we can take over later on. So then in the interest of time, now I would request my panelists to give their presentation. I think we start with the head of GPIO, Malaysia, to give his, I think he has a small presentation also, isn't it? Okay, first welcome.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Chairman. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Singapore High Commissioner to have given GOPIO Malaysia the opportunity to speak in this forum. Well, friends, before I start, I want to say that we're very happy indeed. We actually had sessions over the WhatsApp among the speakers because we are the only speakers quite diverse. When we were discussing, we realized that there are a lot of differences. The progress that we have made in engaging India in all our countries were actually very different, in different levels. So in that order, I'll probably give you some of the achievements that we have done through GOPIO. And what are the engagement? Basically, I want to let you know, that is what exactly I'm going to focus on, the achievements that we have done with India, engaging India, and after that, what are the things that we should be doing further in order to enhance the progress with India, especially in the ASEAN context. This is just to give you an overview. That is, these are the overseas Indian in ASEAN. If you can see, from morning you have heard there are about 62 million Indians in ASEAN, and out of 10% of it are actually the Indians here in ASEAN. Okay, 66 million people. And you'll see that we have largest number in Malaysia and also followed by Myanmar. This is just give you an overview. PRs Malaysia, we have 2.7 million, out of it almost 600,000 are actually in the what we call B40 category. That means their income is below poverty line. And then only about 3.8% are in the public service. These are some of the background. So far, how much we are, I'm just giving you the details here. And then we have been deprived of employment over the past 60 to 70 years. Now they have taken some affirmative steps through certain agencies, which is hopefully works out. And then we were frustrated, and all of you know in 2008 we had this rally in Malaysia, which actually changed the landscape of the politics in Malaysia. And that was one characteristic the Indian exhibited in Malaysia. We were one excellent exhibition of solidarity, but then very unfortunately within a few years, the whole, like a Coca-Cola bottle, the thing fizzled out because we were easily succumbed to the rule and divide and rule policy. That was roughly the situation for the past almost 60 plus years. Let me go tell you the engagements that we had with India. This is the terminology, we term it in GOPIO as the first level engagement. What we did was, in 1989, when we first formed GOPIO, the Global Organization of People of Indian Origin, this was actually initiated by the people from the British. Actually, this was the British who came and approached Malaysia, and that's when we initiated the GOPIO, and henceforth, Malaysia, Mauritius, we were the ones who were actually driving the GOPIO to some extent. And then we started traveling to establish chapters all over countries, because if you want to approach India at that point of time, you have to show the strength that you have as PIOs. Before that, we were not actually connected as one overseas community. And then we started to engage India during the Prime Minister when Mr. Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. He was very receptive. I remember one of the members, one of the pioneers of GOPIO, Mr. Dande Bahadur, once said to Vajpayee, "You're only taking care of the NRIs, you're not taking care of the PIOs. Are the PIOs your stepchildren?" This was one of the issues that made him, and at this time that Mr. Vajpayee, actually, the Excellency, actually made the decision that they must engage PIOs all over the world, and that gave birth to your Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, which we all are athletic today. He understood the PIOs. He understood that it is the PIOs that actually was holding on to the culture of the Indian culture overseas. We never lost our culture. We never lost our language. Of course, in some places they did lose, but certain places we still maintained it. So Indian culture was flourishing because of the PIO, and there are 30 million people all over the world. I would say the Indian government is very supportive. That was a very good starting point, and that's when we start moving. In our first level engagements, we had a lot of achievements, a lot of lobbying, a lot of discussions with the Indian government, and one of the things that gave us was the Ministry of Overseas Affairs, MOIA. Of course, now it has been gone into, what is absorbed into MEA and all that, but that ministry was a full-fledged ministry, and a senior minister was sitting on it, and they were really listening to us. And then they started having Indian culture centers. I will say the Indian culture center, particularly in Malaysia, is wonderful. They're doing a very good job there, engaging the local PRs effectively. And then the OCI card. I would say the OCI card is also something that we actually asked Mr. Vajpayee in those days. I said, it's important you give us some kind of recognition. That's when actually was known as the People of Indian Origin card. Later, for better benefits, I think they changed to OCI card. The nomenclature was changed. Basically, it's a card, and it's one of wonderful cards. I think there's no other country in this world that can give you a card, citizenship card, without even you stepping on the soils of India. This was something that the only two things you can't do that. Very simple. You don't vote, which we don't need to, and of course, there's some rules of agricultural land. You cannot buy more than 5 acres. Other than that, everything else you can enjoy as an Indian citizen. I really want to commend on this effort. Then we wanted education, Indian education. This is why I want to share with you all. We used to have 50, 60,000 people of Indian origin studying India in those days, in the 60s and 70s and early 80s. Today is less than 1,000. Over the years, the figures are dwindled. The mindset of the youth has been changed. So we need to look at India, because now nobody wants to go to study in India from Malaysia. Now, that is some question that I want to throw to you all. What is that? We have to do it. And then, of course, I told you about Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. They gave us the annual engagement. And, of course, the Know India program, which I feel we have done quite well and is doing quite well. There are many sessions nowadays. They are from what they had used there once, now twice. There's more than 3-4 times now. I think they have to engage more. They have to go from a wider perspective, because India is very big, and I know there's a lot of interest has been developed among the youth to actually get in India and understand India. A lot of these things that happened, we had alternate medicine, and they have offered scholarship, Ayush scholarship to diasporas. But unfortunately, in some countries, the take-up is not there. Probably the awareness of alternate medicine has not come into that, especially among the youth. They are still not fully understood the benefits of getting into alternate medicine. And Some of the governments have taken, if in Malaysia, they have actually, Indian government has actually seconded doctors, alternate medicine doctors, Ayurveda doctors in the hospitals. Now we can go for both treatments. They have complementary treatment, you can go for both treatments and they join together and give support. All this has to expand further. This is one great achievement that we had it this year, last year in 2017, is the mutual accreditation of degrees from almost 724 universities and institutions from India. This is where I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Indian High Commission of Malaysia. We took a lot of effort in making sure. Now, this is an important thing because without this accreditation, we could not actually send students to go to India, they come back, they don't get job. They get underpaid. They're not recognized. And this effort was recently materialized when my Prime Minister went over to Prime Minister Modi and they had a discussion and this is one achievement that happened recently and we are very happy about it. But then to move on for it, to get our boys to go there, that's a big challenge because our boys are not ready to look at India to first because they were so engrossed, so brainwashed to only look at the Western. I think yesterday's session someone spoke, why do they look at for Western education rather than India where the quality is there? We have very good professors and they are not looking at it. Only the old-timers, the people like us, will still like to go back to India, but the youngsters, this is something the Indian government and the PIA community has to address. If we lose our youth, if they don't look at it in India, if they're not looking at the way that we have seen in a different context, of course, with the modern world, we may lose them. So it's something that we have to look at. And one of the areas that we can actually realize this thing is through education. I believe any student who spends 4 years in India will be more Indian than anybody else. He will be very much Indianized. This is one of the things so education, 4 or 5 years in India, he will be a meaningful Indian to all of us. And now, of course, we had fantastic Modi's visit. 15,000 of us were there to welcome him in Malaysia. And then in that process, the recognition of Little India was given there. So we have a Little India with a lot of Indian structures there. And then I want to take the excellent service and support from the Indian Commission. The commissions were very helpful. High commissions were very helpful in our country. Now, we are now in a phase, we are going into second life. We cannot further engage India in the way that we were engaging the senior citizens or we were engaging India. We go to India, we go to temples, we go to visit our villages. This was the kind of engagement. I feel very passionate to go visit my village. But I think the youth is not interested in that now. Now, how do we engage them? This is some challenge that we have, something that we have to actually throw to all of you. I hope the youth who are here, I must say there are about 15 youth from Malaysia and almost 10 youth from Singapore fully participating. Please give them a big hand. They have to be educated in Indian heritage in the right manner. They must understand the Indian values. It's no point we keep on telling that we are the ones who are ruling the country, we taught the world, but then if they don't understand what that stands, then we are not going to go far with them, because they are the ones who are going to drive the next so-called disruptive technology, but it must be done, it must be managed with all right values. Indian value system is important. Indian culture, yoga. This I want to thank India for introducing yoga to the world. It was it's one of the biggest things the Prime Minister Modi has done. It is a great thing. And this one area that we all have to focus. I think that can help in many ways to address the other issues of the youth. We need more comprehensive approach in all these matters. In education, like I say, they are not prepared to go to India. How did the Western countries came into some of Malaysia especially? Malaysia became very famous for twinning programs. They started campuses here. They offer foreign degrees here. You do 2 years here and you go over there for 2 years and you still get a US degree. This is how they made it cheaper for the people not to go to overseas and study. Now, this is one collaborative training program with Indian universities. Is something that we can look into so that we can generate the interest of our youth to actually take up studies in Indian universities. The other one is facilitate internships, credit transfers. Internship. Let our guys to go and do internship in India. There must be ways and means for them to go. There must be facilities for them to go and get, because now practically every university says at least one semester of their time in their university must be spent outside the campus. So facilities for internship, I'm sure there's a lot available in India. Research and development is another area that we have to look into. And student and faculty exchange, all this will be useful. And extend very skilled training, like iTech. I'm very much keen. iTech is a super skill thing. You are really a professional, you go and upgrade your skill according to time, according to current norms. And this thing is generally available G2G. When you do G2G, not all Indians get the opportunity. Very rare, very difficult, because the G2 thing, in fact, it's not even publicized. So these iTech programs, probably the Indian government can look into offering such things directly to NGOs, where we can identify our local Indian NGOs to actually identify people who want to upgrade the skills to participate. And then revive the initiatives of PI University. Friends, ever since we started GoPio, ever since from the early days, we have been always asking the Indian government for the PIO University. This is an important thing because it will definitely give a lot of leverage for PIOs to engage India more effectively, especially in the line of education. And some time ago, it was not, it was brought up to a certain level, and then it was not continued. And I would like to take this forum as a suggestion to the chairman here to actually take up this issue, because PIO University is something very important that the PIOs all the world must have with India. So in entrepreneurship, business, let me finish it up very quickly. These are things we have. In business, what is important is we need to have more engagement at SME level. This is not happening much. This is very important, and there must be a lot more of such things to be done on that. And I just want to say this yoga thing. You see, we need to have young people in yoga, and we need qualified yoga teachers, because if you want to start yoga, we want to start young at school age, and we cannot go on such initiative. We don't have enough teachers and masters to teach. I think that India can give us the support. So we need to train more yoga, with enough trained teachers. Our initiative to start this early in the schools. We plan to start in the primary schools. We want to start all our primary schools to have yoga as one of the compulsory subjects. With that, okay, these are some of the proposals that I have. Okay, propose the countries to form GoPio chapters so that we have councils. We have already formed a council of peers, get the NGOs in the Indian-based NGOs to form councils so that we can move ahead as a big force. Propose formation of GoPio Asean should be formed so that we can work more as a regional PPD should be an annual affair. I hope we can get it done in Malaysia next year. Friends, this is my last. This always comes from my heart. I always say wherever I go, India is a force to reckon with the other powers. We always have to redeem our past glory so that we can stand tall as Indians. This is very important, and we must be always united as Indians. That's the formidable point. This is something is lacking. We have seen in my country, when the moment we are together as Indian, they break you up, you call you Telugu, Malayali, and all this thing, and that's it. The whole thing collapsed. Okay? We have to stand first as an Indian, and then reach out to each other, and make unity in diversity. This is something we're always very proud. We are diverse people, we are united in diversity, but it is really a reality. To me, until now, it's just a myth. I think this has to make as the real, true reality. And I think, remember, when we are united, we can stand, divided we fall. Friends, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I really want to see PIOs, especially in the ASEAN region, to actually go in force, because the next economy, everything is with India and ASEAN. And we have to be united so that we can be a real, strong force and drive and get back the glory as Indians all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ravindran. I think as President of GPIO, GoPio, he spoke from the heart, and he brought out some issues which are very relevant, especially like the last one, we have to be united, because from my own experience when I was in the Gulf, from, I won't name any particular place, but from a particular state, from that itself, there were as many associations as there were universities, people, from a particular place or from districts. So let alone people from the state forming one association. So these are some of the challenges. So I would now like to invite Mr. Kamal Kant Agarwal, who is head of international banking, Siam Commercial Bank, and I think before that he worked for the, I'm told, Standard Chartered Bank. He has a rich experience, and he has been abroad for a long time to share his views and experience. So Mr. Agarwal, please. Yeah.
Thank you. So just to briefly again give my background, I'm an engineer from IIT Delhi and an MBA from IIM Calcutta, and I've worked with Bank of America for the first 17 years, of which 10 years were in Thailand. And then I worked with Standard Chartered Bank for another 13 years. And last 5 years, I'm working with what is the largest local bank in Thailand, which is 25% owned by the royal family, Siam Commercial Bank. So in total, I've been in Thailand for about 28 years. Now, the fact that I'm a banker puts you in a better position because you are interacting very closely with the business community in the country. Also, as head of the unit in Thailand for Standard Chartered Bank, I was part of the Asean sub-region. And so we used to have a meeting every time, either in Kuala Lumpur or Jakarta or Bangkok by rotation. And so for the last 10, 15 years, I've been extensively visiting the ASEAN countries. And in my current role in Siam Commercial Bank as head of international banking, any overseas operations of Siam Commercial Bank reports into me. So I make 5 trips to Myanmar in a year, maybe another 5 to Cambodia. So again, it has given me extensive travel, this time a little bit more in the Mekong region compared to what I did in Standard Chartered. Before I start talking about it, just one statistics, because he showed the number of PIOs, though maybe there are other NRIs. In Thailand alone, the number of overseas Chinese is 9 million. Now, if you added up all the numbers that you showed in your slide, that is Thailand, the Chinese population, origin population is higher than that whole slide numbers put together. And Thailand is the country which has the highest number of overseas Chinese. It is not the US, it is not any other country, it is Thailand which has the highest number of overseas Chinese. So it just gives you a comparison. Again, as I talk, since I have been an NRI for 28 years, I look at my own, what I have been through in the last 28 years. And when I became an NRI, like many of the people sitting in this room, it was like you were treated like God in the family, amongst your relatives. You know, the word I used was Jamai Raja. You were treated like a Jamai Raja whenever you landed up because you had become an NRI. Now, that has changed. In the 28 years, that polish has gone off. Maybe there are too many of us. India has done exceedingly well. India has produced a lot of billionaires, and so NRIs don't have that same shine that they had 28 years ago. But on the other hand, if I'm being honest, when I went to Thailand, the issue of respect for Indians was a serious issue. I mean, the story which all of you would have heard, if you see an Indian and you see a snake, kill the Indian first. I mean, I heard that at least 50 times in my first couple of years. And so that is the period through which we have been. And fortunately, over the last 5 to 10 years, as India has done well, and people who are in the technology area, people who are on the banking area, have helped establish this image of Indians, which is different from the image that Indians have had, unfortunately so, in the past. As I experienced that in my early years, and I was in banking, and as I said, the highest number of overseas Chinese are in Thailand. Even my bank used to wonder whether I should send, everybody calls me KK to a Chinese origin company, And if you know, in this region, most of the large corporates are owned by Chinese origin people. And so there used to be concern whether it is appropriate to send an Indian to a Chinese company because the relationships are not so good. And I'm just mentioning this because we have overcome all that. I've largely overcome all of that, but it has taken us some years, and it has good fortune, good fate that India is in a different trajectory at this point in time, and the Indian tech person has been so highly, so well recognized in today's world. The fact that you have an Indian heading Microsoft, Google, etc., all adds to that, and hopefully this has made the path easier for future NRIs as they come overseas. But this experience that I had in my first couple of years led me to believe few things. Every Indian, and that's true for any person outside his home country, is a brand ambassador for his country. And he needs to make sure, because everybody is observing him, and by looking at you, they are forming impressions about what Indians are and what India is, like they have formed perceptions in the past, and they are judging you by those previous perceptions. Nobody else is going to change those perceptions but we ourselves. And so it's the responsibility of every Indian overseas to be careful about how they conduct themselves, how they treat their local subordinates, because there are two issues with Indians. We are all familiar with it. Patience is not our virtue. We are impatient. As soon as the words have come out of our mouth, we want the thing to be done. Second, we are short-tempered. You know, I think the Indian short temper is well known. So, and if you look at most of Southeast Asia, Indonesians, Thais, they are very nice, docile people. So if you get angry at them, they will start crying right away. I mean, and in Thailand, 70% of the working population is girls. So I always keep a tissue box next to me. and gradually, as you work, you start overcoming these things. But I think we all, and I think, need to be cognizant that we are brand ambassadors for India. I, on my part, because I have interacted with the largest corporations in the country, with various people, have always sort of kept that in mind, that when you are dealing with anyone, keep in mind that he's judging you and forming an impression about India. And I think we can contribute a lot. I think people who are overseas, people who are in positions like mine, we can contribute a lot. I became a member of the Thailand-India Business Council from last year, and I'm the vice chairman of that. The India-Thai Chamber, and there's a similar body in every country. I mean, these are the agencies through which we need to overcome two things, which I'm talking about the local Thai investor or the local Indonesian investor. The first is trust. I'm a believer, so to solve any problem, first you have to understand and accept what the problem is. And the fact is, even today, most of these countries don't trust Indians. It's a fact. We can deny it, we can refuse to accept it. So building that trust, which takes a long time, is the responsibility of each one of us. Second, because they have seen India in the past and how complex and how difficult, many of them have shut their minds. They don't want to go to India to invest. And you know, the Southeast Asian people are not like the Americans or the Europeans, which are large corporations. They have a lot of manpower who can go and deal with all of this. The average Thai investor wants things to be easier for him. He doesn't mind paying for it. If there is an agency which can facilitate things, he is more than happy to pay for it. But ask him to run around to 10 different offices, he just cannot deal with it. And I think you know, this focus on ease of doing business, which the country has had in recent times, and the fact that we have improved by 42 steps on that count is a welcome development. And I think we absolutely need more of it. We Indians can deal with it. The point I will make, the others cannot deal with it. They find it very difficult to deal with it, whether you are Japanese, whether the Koreans are tougher. I think I have observed Koreans in India, and they can deal with it because the Koreans are tougher. But the Indonesians, the Thais, and the Japanese, they cannot deal with the complexity that India represents. And I think one of the things which we can do is have, and I don't know whether Invest India is in that category, but we can have agencies like this. And I repeat, they don't mind paying for it as long as they get help. So we don't have to provide these services free of cost, but they need somebody who can take them through this maze and get the solutions that they want. And there are n number of things. I have a list of things because I sit on the Thailand-India Business Council, starting from land ownership, etc., the kind of issues that they face, including knowing who the real owner of the land is. They are afraid of buying the land because they don't know who the real owner of the land is. So, but these are all micro-level problems which we have to focus on. But let me summarize and close off by saying we need to deal with the trust part, and we need to do hand-holding if we want these investors from Southeast Asia to come in a bigger way.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gowal. I think he, from his rich practical experience, he laid down some or suggested some very practical issues, I think, which all of you need to address. And I think that also gels with my experience. He said that every Indian is a brand ambassador. In fact, my last posting, I was an ambassador in Khartoum with managing 2 countries. And each function, I used to say, first I used to start that everybody, especially if a lot of Indians are there, Indian community, that, each one of you is an ambassador first. I just happen to be in the official capacity. But he has very rightly said that. And also, let me say, in Sudan also, the people were very simple and straightforward, and there were a lot of Sudanese who were graduates from India, more than 30,000, and many of them were in the government. But the issue which was mentioned was the same in Sudan, short-sightedness, impatience. But on the other hand, they used to accept our community in total, though the religion was different. It's an Islamic Arabic country, but it's in a transition. People are also very close to their African heritage. Racially, they are a mix of the black Africans and Arabs, but predominantly Africans. So we had a very old Gujarati community there in Sudan, starting 3rd, 4th generation. Many of them had become Sudanese. And so they would also say, see, the way we are accepted here, if a Sudanese goes to India, the first thing we shudder is whether he'll be racially abused or the same sort of acceptability he gets or not. So that's a challenge which everybody needs to, so for the perception's sake. So anyhow, these are some of the things maybe in question answer we can discuss further. Now I would like to invite Mr. Anjaya, who is editor of Jakarta Post, Indonesia, to give his talk. He has been journalist, so I'm sure he must be observing a lot of things, following a lot of stories, especially from the Asean India perspective. So I would like to invite him to present his point of views in relation to the topic. Mr. Anjaya, please.
Yeah, thank you, panel chair, Mr. Amrit Lugun, and fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, India is an amazing country because we are the oldest and also the biggest, and maybe in 10 years' time, we will become the most populous country on the planet. Right now, we have around 1.35 billion people. And also, at the same time, it is so diverse. So we have this Indian diaspora, which is strong now, 25 million people. 25 million people live in around more than 80 or 90 countries across the globe. But what is unique about this Indian diaspora is, I call it always, it is an United Nations, because it is a mini United Nations. Because, for example, in Indonesia, where I come from, we have Indians who are holding Indian passports, we have Malaysian Indians, we have Singapore Indians, we have South African Indians, we have Australian Indians, we have British Indians, and different people from different countries. So it is so diverse. So coming to the, before that, I want to introduce myself. I have a unique characteristic because I am so fortunate because many of the audience, I think maybe they might have born here and they never hold Indian passport. So I have a unique opportunity. I was born and brought up in India for 30 years there. I lived there 30 years as an Indian citizen living in India. And then I went to Indonesia. I worked in Indonesia for 19 years as an expat Indian. And then after that, 8 years ago, I became an Indonesian citizen. So now I am an Indonesian Indian. So I have these three experiences I want to share. But Southeast Asia is a unique region, and we have thousands years of relations. Our culture is well known here. Our Bollywood movies are very popular here. And now the latest entrant is the yoga, which is becoming so fast popular. For example, when I went to Indonesia around 27 years ago, at that time, many people didn't know about yoga. But luckily, the Indian government did a very great job. Though most of the Indian diaspora members live in, for example, the Malaysia is the biggest, and the Myanmar is the second, and Thailand is the third. Singapore is the fourth, and Indonesia is the fifth. But the Indonesian government, the Indian government, they opened the first Indian cultural center, not in Malaysia, not in Thailand, not in Singapore, but in Jakarta. Why? Because Indonesia is the biggest country in Southeast Asia. They have 265 million people. It constitutes half of the Asean, and it is a $1 trillion economy. But we have very few Indians, only 100,000 people there. But it is a golden opportunity. So you cannot imagine, the biggest trading partner in ASEAN is Indonesia, not Singapore, not Malaysia. And unfortunately, it is only a one-way trade, because Indonesia is supplying every Indian family in India. They are using Indonesian products like palm oil. They cook every day. And also like the power, the coal. Indonesia is the biggest exporter of coal. So in Indonesia, they have a very good perception of Indians. That is the very big plus point, because still they follow Indian traditions, even though Indonesia is the biggest Muslim country in the world, #1. It has the huge Muslim population, but still the many Muslims, they carry the Indian names like Parvati, Sita, Rama, Karna. So they care about the ancient civilization. Even I married an Indonesian lady whose house is next to the famous Prambanan Hindu temple in a Muslim country, in a Muslim locality. Nowadays, no Hindus live there. But still they preserve that tradition, that culture. So that kind of advantage we have. But now coming to the point that in spite of all these advantages, civilization links, why India is not exploiting or integrating with ASEAN closely? We may talk here hours together, but if you see the real statistics, our trade is very small one, $60 billion. It is not that big. If you compare with the Southeast Asia's trade with China, Southeast Asia's trade with Korea, Japan, US, others. But why it is happening? Because just right now our friend told us that most of these countries, economies, the companies are dominated by Chinese. Generally, they look towards East. Japan, Korea, China. So if you want to penetrate into Southeast Asia, we need the kind of technologies, the kind of work ethics, the kind of everything we should have. Then only we will have a foothold here. We tell, oh, we watch this and we tell this, but they will not come to India easily. So that's why it is a responsibility of Indian diaspora to what Mr. Jain said, that we should represent our culture, our country. We should not involve in wrong things, because you may be a person, but if you do something wrong, like if you bribe and you go to a jail, it gives a bad image for the whole Indian community. And if you involve in drugs, if you involve in terrorism, so this we should maintain, and we should treat our friends, people, very in a human manner. that is very important. So my suggestion is that as members of diaspora who constitute 1% of the ASEAN population, 600 million people, so it is 1 million. So we have a very good advantage of services sector talent. We have many people, because the Southeast Asians, they respect Indians a lot, because they regard them, they are highly hardworking and also highly educated, highly talented, and they have a good trust. So we have two major missions. One is to teach our children about India and its greatness. Why I'm telling this? I have a daughter who is 20 years old. I told her several times, why don't you, because since her birth, she never visited India. I told her, but she said, so you see, Daddy, in the newspapers, many women were raped, and many accidents, and this. She always see and comes with the proof that, see, this is the news. So, because nowadays information is a big weapon, it spreads like a rapid fire. If something small event, which is a bad one, it is spread across the globe in a 1 hour, 2 hours. Then I told her, okay, I listen and I agree with you because this is a bad news, but I want to take you one day, because I took her last June. Then she changed her mind completely. I never imagined India is like this. We have this family relations links. So now she has become a great fan of India. So that's why we want to teach the children. That is very important. The second one, we have a mission. We are not just members of the Indian diaspora, because we are members or ambassadors of India and its culture. So we should tell about India to the people where we live. That is important. The Indian embassy is also first, when they open the cultural center, only the Indian community people will go there and spend all the time. I told the ambassador, I told the cultural center director, our purpose is just not Indian, because Indian diaspora people are great patriots. You don't need any publicity for them. You don't need anything to teach them. They can learn themselves. They have that strong feeling. So what we should do is, our main purpose of the embassy or cultural center is to promote Indian culture among the local people, among the Indonesians, among the Malaysians, among the Singapore, among the Chinese. So this is our major purpose. So for that, we Indians, we should tell. For example, in Indonesia, we have a now big problem. Many of the Indonesian television channels, they are showing Bollywood movies, music, soap opera programs for 18 hours a day. They are competing fiercely. They are the most popular programs. And when I meet an Indonesian friend, hey, do you know this guy? I feel myself ashamed because I never watch those TV shows. See, we are in a different situation. So that's why we should promote India among the local people. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Anjaya, for sharing your views. I think we have officially already run out of time, but I think we started late, so we have fortunately only one more speaker. But sharing your ideas, but just to inform some of the things, when we are abroad, the idea is to spread the Indian culture or cultural center among the local people. At least that was the mandate which I did in my last posting, both myself and my wife, whenever cultural program was there. So we made sure that at least 80 to 70% are from the local community, means the Sudanese, not non-Indians. And it needs a lot of work, to say what interests them, because it's an Islamic culture there, So and we were very happy that when we were leaving, the numbers were increasing. So anyhow, that's just one point. Due to, again, interest of time, I would like to now invite Mr. Ravindra Kumar Jain, who's from Myanmar and who is in the, promoting health business, to give his views. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ravindra Jain, born in a country which is the ancient society in the world, and nowadays living in the country which is the most generous in the world from last 2 years. So good evening, Subh Sandhya and Minglava from Myanmar. Myanmar is the hidden gems in the Asean country. This is the country currently in the world which is the unknown for the world. But Myanmar is one country which is having a very good relation and gateway for Asean to from India. If you need to come to Asean, you cannot come without coming to Myanmar. So we, as a NRI and diaspora, how we can help to Indian government and Myanmar government to have a better relation between ASEAN and India. I'm going to talk around 5 to 7 minutes about this topic. So in this topic, like we all know, Indian doctors is the best in the world. They are considered, like in US, 36% doctors, they belong from Indian origin. So currently, India is having few of the best doctor in the world. So my company and tie up with that, I have bring something very new, very innovative. We are doing the medical tourism. We are helping Myanmar patient or any country patient to get the medical treatment at very reasonable rates. Just today morning when I met our Honorable Minister Sushma Swaraj, last week one of Myanmar patient is a child. He go to India for heart surgery. That surgery has been sponsored by the Rotary Club, Gift of Life, and Indian Hospital. Then our minister go and meet the child in the daily after her busy schedule. And when this post, when I publish on my Facebook page, I got lot of calls from the Myanmar people. They were very happy. So what I want to say, how we can bring this smile to the people, and for that we are working a lot for this, taking out Myanmar patient to India. For that, we are requesting today, also requested to our foreign minister, and we requested to our prime minister when he came to Myanmar about having a direct flight, which is a big concern for us. And this one thing, I will give you one very simple example. 2 months back, one of Myanmar patient, he is only 32-year-old, he need a kidney transplant. That time his wife was pregnant. He go to India for kidney transplant. When he reached there, then the hospital find this patient fever is not going down. They find out this patient is having a tuberculosis. So before doing the kidney transplant, they need to do his tuberculosis treatment. As you already know, for tuberculosis treatment, it will require at least 3 months medication. And our India government, currently Indian government does not increase as easily visa extended. They said no overstay clause is there for Indian visa. That time our embassy, Indian government helped me, and then that patient got the visa extension. And I just want to share the happiness, and when this boy come after kidney transplant, till that time he was a proud father of son, coming back after 6 months from India. And one day he come with lot of fruits at my home, and his father also come, and he was so happy, and he was having such a good respect for Indians, because I helped them to getting that kidney transplant, as well as help them to get extended their visa. So what my panelist is already talking about, that we as a NRI PIO, we are the brand ambassador of India. Your one act make your country proud, or your another bad act make your bad name for Indians. Another thing, I have one thing which I would like to discuss with everybody. Like I live in a country, Myanmar, which got more than 90% population, which is they follow the Buddhism. Whenever I talk to any Myanmar citizen, they have one dream in life. Visit at least one time in a life to Bodh Gaya. So as India, we should have something. Okay, so we just imagine, as a marketing person, you can think 60 million people are waiting to go to India. How you take all of them, we all together should think and so we can reduce the price. We can take all Myanmar citizens at least once time to India. And when you have people-to-people relationship, you will going to have a very good relationship. Like as you already know, 35 years Myanmar was ruled by the junta. So they are very pro. It is like mostly businesses like everywhere in Southeast Asia, Myanmar also, mostly big company, mostly businesses have the honor from Chinese, and that they have a lot of power, lot of influence on decision making. But as an Indian, as a NRI, we can help them to doing this good gesture. Like in my, before that, before our session, there was one discussion, like some Chinese can give the cash. They were asking, India government is doing only cultural thing and other thing. I am a one believer, cash alone can't do anything. If you have a good human relation, you will get so many things without cash also. So keep believing yourself. You can have much more better. India should never learn anything bad from anybody. It may be China or any country. If someone is thief, you should not become the thief. You should embrace your value system. You continue, because always truth win, honesty win, and we are going to be a winner. And that's the reason you see whenever you talk, the all top multinational company as a software engineer, they all CEO are Indians. All topmost doctors are Indians. All NASA, almost 30% scientists are Indian. We are one of the best people in the world by the knowledge, by our educational qualification, and we do a lot of things which nobody else can do. So we should continue these things. Another thing, sometimes people ask us, whenever we as a NRI ask, hey, why NRI are so successful whenever they go out of India? When they are in India, they are not that much successful, but when they get out of India, they become very successful. The reason is very simple. When you are in India, you always think what people are talking about you. When you are in NRI, nobody knows you, so don't worry what people are thinking about you. So you are doing best. You are having no time to thinking what people are talking about you. Just like I am the last speaker for today evening, in Hindi we say Ant Bhala so Sab Bhala. So I am going to talk end bell, then everything is bell. So I am going to tell one small story. One time in a well, there is one frog, it fall down. Then frog want to come out of the well, but frog could not come, but there are a lot of frog was there outside. And they were telling this frog, oh, this is all 5 feet, you can't come. But that frog is trying again and again and again and again, trying. After some time, that frog come out. So then frog come out, so everybody was thinking, hey, everybody is demotivating you, still you can come out from the bell. Then there is one old man, they ask him, how this frog can be done this? Then that old frog told them, this frog can't listen anything. So be as an Indian, what people are talking about you, don't listen, don't bother about that. Just do your job. That is the thing we should focus. We are the best, and we are going to be the best. Believe in yourself, and don't listen what other people, because we have one very simple saying, when people are throwing the stone, they will going to throw stone which tree have the fruits. Nobody is going to throw the stone, the tree which does not have a stone, because we are the fastest growing economy. So many people will going to criticize. Our media will going to give lot of nonsense, lot of negative news. They just put all type of negative news, like one rape happened in 1 billion people. If one, I say there should not be any these type of things happen in India. But if you compare in which way this negative news propagated about India is out of proportion. If you take, we are a 1.3 billion people country, so it is that not everything is wrong is not happening. I am a person who born and brought up in a village in UP. Till 8th standard, I have done the study. There was no school, there was only 3-room school, 8 class, 2 teacher, and literally when it is raining, we have a holiday. And when I go after this time, I go just ask my father, I want to take a mobile SIM card. How our country is changing, you just imagine it. That day there was no electricity, but then also I got my SIM card in just 40 seconds with Aadhaar card. So things are changing and be a part of change. Don't drag our country. We have something which can be improved. There will be nobody is going to perfect in this world. So improve and make your strength so powerful that your negative thing, your weakness cannot be take over for you. By this, I would like to end my talk and be Indian, proud Indian, and we should have and use, and I would like to just last to welcome all of you. Come in Myanmar, it's a beautiful country. We got the best beach in Asia, that is called Nepali beach. It is one of the best beach. You will have green, blue water there. Another thing, we have Bagan, which is one of the most ancient city in the world. And we have Yangon, Mandalay, and we have a Inle Lake, which is around 36 kilometers. So you all are welcome. Visit Myanmar. We will be your guests. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jain. With that, I think we have already exceeded our time, but I think we had a very lively presentations, starting from Malaysia to Thailand to Indonesia to Myanmar. And the fact that so many people were listening with apt, I think raised a lot of interest. I wish we could have some interaction time, but I think we are already running, and there is another program. But we are here to interact as for, I don't know.
Okay, do we have any questions? We can take 2 questions. Yes, please go on.
I'm a bit off topic right now, but I think it is related. So the diaspora in India, the Indian diaspora has 2 sides. One are the longer ones, others are the NRIs who work, like I'm an IT guy. I've traveled, I've been 9 years in Singapore, and I've traveled to US, I've traveled to UK, worked there. I just wanted to ask you one brief thing, which is there any policy of the government where an Indian overseas can vote? And because that policy was initially, I heard last year, but I haven't seen any progress on that, on any facility in the local embassies. Singapore has a very good policy. Overseas Singaporeans, they go and they go to the embassies and vote. So is there anything which we can do regarding that? And the second is, there are a lot of good suggestions that came from the first speaker. And I'm firmly believing that as an IT representative talking to you right now, and if some of those suggestions are taken, I think it'll be really, really very fast track ASEAN development. If you share ideas, there's no need to close. I think India has also been closing, but if you really open up, in terms of all the local regional agreements, I think sky's the limit.
Thank you. Just to take the last point first, I mean, I didn't say because of the paucity of time, but most of the suggestions which he mentioned are already on board. For example, No India program. We just had the 42nd edition, 40 people were there. Even there is now second edition of Bharat Ko Janiye quiz, No India. The round have started. So there are already ongoing programs to to what you call associate the overseas Indian people. And it's an ongoing program. And I have to rush back tomorrow because day after tomorrow we are having the first PIO parliamentarian conferences in India, which Prime Minister Mr. Modi himself would be addressing on Tuesday. In fact, more than we have confirmations of already more than 240 parliamentarians of people of Indian origin out of about 360, 375 from Malaysia itself. I know there are 5 or 6 from Thailand, from Indonesia, people are going, and of course, majority are from countries like Fiji or from the Caribbean, Mauritius. These are all over the world. So it's an ongoing. Whereas in the voting is concerned, it's a little complex. You should not compare Indian system with the Singaporean system, which which is a small country where there is not much constituencies, or in other countries where there is a presidential election where president is elected directly. Whereas in India, it is all more indirectly. You vote for a constituency. You don't vote nationally. So there is a little bit complications. Already paper balloting NRIs in some instances can go, and once they are registered in their constituency, which I think is open in all the missions, then you can give a paper ballot. But the idea in India is once you give your paper ballot, even we as when we are posted abroad, we are eligible for that. But the rule is, when you vote and your vote goes to a particular constituency, the paper ballots are opened even for army officers. It is there when the margin of victory is very less, and opening the ballot will make any sense. But there is the initial stage. But election commission is thinking of how to, because government is committed, like many of the NRI and OCI population is going. Of course, OCI is a little different, they cannot vote, but NRIs, how to make it more easier, it's an ongoing process. So we'll have to see how it evolves with experience. Yeah. Yeah.
And I can tell you that it is probably a 2-month project for an IT company to do, even in provincial election or whatever. But I'm just saying that the follow-up for the NRIs is good because we support the policies of the current government, So if expedition is done,
But that you can always vote. You can go and vote. Nobody prevents you from it. Yeah, but how to make it easier is the thing going on, because in India, though, elections have a very sensitive connotation, and election commission is working on that, because election commission, like a judiciary, is an independent body. You cannot dictate them. We have flagged our concerns, Indian NRIs, so they are working on it. So let us be a little patient.
So I have to apologize, I have to intervene. Yes, we are impatient, and we just showed that. Thank you, sir. I understand totally where you are trying to drive, and I do appreciate your concerns and your remarks there. But at the same time, I'd like to thank the panel here. Well, so far from the afternoon that I've been here, we've just heard a panel from the government's perspective, from the global organization's point of view, a banker's perspective. What's that? We have one more question. You know what? 6:30, they will close the doors for the gala dinner, and that's why I'm rushing. But you know what? I've asked the panel to stick around and answer your questions. So just let me do the closure. They will be here. They're more than happy to answer your questions. Yeah. And we've just heard, of course, a banker's perspective due to the deep interaction with the business community that he mentioned from Thailand, the business community, different countries presented here on the panel. A fantastic discussion. Just before it started, I was asked by you, sir, what exactly is an open discussion, right? So now we know what it is. The schemes of the government, fantastic. India's shining. We've given yoga to the world, which is awesome, but we've also given something called jugaad to the world. And I was just talking to the non-Indians the other day, and they said, you know what, you guys are famous for jugaad. Which is a word now which everybody uses across. So yes, we've given that to the vocabulary, but at the same time, what we've shown is that we can do it, right? And we don't give up easily. And that's exactly what we want, the passion to survive as an Indian wherever we live in the world. I would like to thank from the, on behalf of the panel, of course, each one of you who's attended this session.